What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Hello.
This is our third time trying to do this intro because something just keeps happening.
First I yawned.
Yeah, Sierra yawns because she's bored with me. And
Oh, bitch. No, it's because I came from the gym. Thank you very much.
so
and then
yeah,
Olive got off, and as soon as the fucking recording
she
stopped,
crunches
there's
papers.
This is...
So here we are again, and we are here to talk about true crime. So if you clicked on Crime Bitches and did not think we'd be talking true crime,
get the fuck out.
You probably don't want to stick around. Just that. Also, preface this episode with, something that I feel like I'm just going to say. We also are extremely raw. Sierra in particular has a very sailor vocabulary, which, by the way, I will
thank my mother for
I was
that.
going to say, I will admit it came from me.
And my father.
Surrounded
Surrounded by it growing up.
I do know that we've had some people that are not very happy with the language we use, which is totally fine. Totally fine. We're just not your cup of tea. So no offense taken if you choose not to listen. And also, we are not trying to offend you. We are just being ourselves. Okay, so that being said, anything new on the news front? I genuinely, the only thing I can say, the most recent thing I saw about the man who killed his three daughters, or who they feel killed his three daughters in Washington. So the last thing I just saw is they actually are starting to have suspicions that they're not going to find him alive.
But I've been saying that since it started.
However, I saw an interview. And in the interview, somebody had actually talked about his background, specifically what he did in the military. He could live for months on land, like in the wild. That literally was his training. He had training on how to survive for months and months and months on end with nothing but survival skills. So that being said, there is a good chance he could also just be chilling in the woods somewhere.
And then the other thing that I saw, I can't remember the exact date, but they announced that the Brian Kohberger trial is happening in August, I think. But I think it's the end of August.
Just know we probably will be talking about it as it goes, because I have all intentions to seriously at least watch some of the trial. I'm very curious about this trial. I mean, I can remember, you were not even a thought, but I can remember when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on. I was in middle school, and I remember the day that the verdict was supposed to come out, we actually all had TVs wheeled into our classroom so we could watch it being read. So that's how invested I am in this, is just how invested I was in the O.J. Simpson trial. And it's not for any reason other than I think they fucked this one up. And I'm not saying Brian Kohberger's innocent. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I think that they fucked up their ability to grand slam in, it's in, he's guilty. I just don't think it's going to be that easy. I don't. I think they have to prove a hell of a lot more than what they have. But I don't know. They've been so tight-lipped. I'm very curious. I would love to watch it. I would love to hear all the evidence, because everything they've presented publicly, I'm like, that just doesn't seem like, it's all so very circumstantial that it's I don't see how you could, I don't see how you're going to get all 12 jury members to agree that he's guilty. So we'll see. So we'll probably have little updates here and there. So other than that, I think we're ready to just get into what you actually came here for today, which is to listen to me tell you a story about a man named Matthew Kidder. Now, what we're talking about is June 2015 in Omaha, Nebraska. And a girl named Jessyka Nelson, her body is found raped and strangled in her home, and Matthew Kidder is held responsible. So I don't really have a ton of background information on Matthew or Jessyka, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, I have so little that I'm going to actually tell you this whole entire story completely different than I normally do. I normally, give you all the background and then tell you the murders and then tell you the outcomes. I'm just going to kind of tell you who they are, because I don't have actual background, and then we're just going to get right into the murder. So Jessyka Nelson, she was a single mother. She actually had a job at a bank, and it was actually described as her dream job. She genuinely was feeling it. She had a son who was 6 at the time of her murder, and she was 28 at the time of her murder. Now, Jessyka had been in a previous relationship with her son's father, but the two of them had split up, and they did share custody, and Jessyka actually moves into her own apartment. It sounded like she had her son majority of the time, and then her ex would get him like maybe once a week or twice a week. Now, the overall consensus that I could find was that she was a hardworking single mom who put her son first and was trying to make the best life for him and herself. No harm, no foul, just like a hardworking lady. Now, Matthew Kidder was actually a very close friend of Jessyka and her family. Now, her family and his family knew each other. That's how close of friends they were. They actually grew up together. He was actually her brother's best friend, and their two dads were like really good friends. And he even Matthew referred to Jessica's dad as Uncle Harry. Like, that's how close they were. And Jessica's sister actually had said after everything had come out, she said, it's so shocking that he would ever do that because we all grew up like cousins. So this is like just like a really good family friend. Now, I am sure you can imagine the disbelief when he becomes the suspect in the murder of Jessyka. And the family was literally like, no. However, it was found out later that Matthew had actually served time for sexually assaulting a woman in her home in the past too. He had actually served time for that. So it's not really that far out of his realm. So on June 25th, 2015, Jessyka does not show up to work. Now, this is very unusual since, like I said, this job is like her dream job. She wants to do this. This is what she's been shooting for. Now, her manager actually knows that this is her dream job. The manager also knows that Jessyka is never late for work. She never just no call, no shows. So the manager finds that it's suspicious that she hasn't shown up to work. So the manager actually calls Jessica's mother and is like, hey, Jessica's like over an hour late for work, and we find this to be unusual. We tried calling her. She did not answer. So I'm just do you know where she is? So her mother actually then is like, yeah, that's really bizarre. She would never not show up to work. So she calls her. She calls Jessyka. No answer. So then she decides, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and drive over to her house, because in her mom's mind, Jessyka would never miss work, let alone show up late for work and not tell anybody. This is just not in her realm of things. So her mom's like, the fact that I can't get a hold of her, I need to check on her. So she gets in her car. As she's driving over, she continues calling her daughter. And I felt that so deeply because Sierra does not live at home anymore. And when my husband travels, if I don't hear from him,
oh my God,
that's me. I'd be calling. And with Sierra, she doesn't live far. So if I call her 4 times and she's not answering, I'll show up at her house.
That's like when I lived in South Dakota because I went to college there, and I was on a date, okay? First date with this guy, and my parents had my location, and they could see that I was at the restaurant, but
we couldn't.
Yes, you did.
Mm-mm, we couldn't. We could not see anything. Your Snapchat, at the time it was Snapchat. Your Snapchat did not have anything on there, which is why we kept calling you. That's why. Because we knew you were on the date. And it was
regardless, they fucking blew my phone up 24/7.
But what time in the morning? What time was it? What time was it?
At that time, it was probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. Bullshit. My time, yes, because I was at dinner.
No.
Okay.
No, it was 11:30 at night, and she had gone on her date at 6. And we were sitting there we were expecting her to call us back, call us and tell us how her date was.
Yeah, I was still on the fucking date, so I couldn't.
Correct. But in our brains, we're looking at the time going, okay, most restaurants are closed by 11 o'clock. So the fact that she's not calling us or even responding, because I didn't need her to call me like, hey, I made it back to my dorm. What we expected was if we called and she was still on the date, that we would she'd send a quick message. It's like, hey, I'm still on my date. That would have been fine. Nothing. It was radio silence. And then we finally got a hold of her at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we were so pissed because she was like, what? I'm still on my date. And we were so pissed because we're like, a simple still on my date. All you had to do was text us back, because all we could imagine is we just sent our daughter off to college. She is barely 18 years old, and she goes on a date, and we can't find her. We can't hear from her. We have no idea where she is, and there's nobody we can contact to try to find her or see her. And all that's going through my head is I studied true crimes at that time too. And all I could think of is, oh my God, this is a scenario where she is getting killed. She's gotten killed. She's dead. She's on the side of the road dead. That's it. That's how it be sometimes. So I felt her mom's fear, because I know that fear when you're trying to get a hold of your children. And also, Sierra, I know I'm sidetracking and I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say this. Let's not forget about the time we could not get a hold of your brother and you bombed your ass home and like almost drove through the house and he had just been asleep.
Hey, on a fucking real note, if I would have gotten pulled over, I was going so fast in my fucking car. That's not that fast, by the way.
Yeah.
I was going so fast in my car, they would have sent me to jail because of how fast I was going.
Because you were afraid something happened to him. So now you know that fear, right? That's the fear. That's the fear that her mom was having, right? Like, oh my God, my daughter, I can't get a hold of her. Doesn't matter how old your children get, you always worry about them. So she's driving to her daughter's house. Now, when Missy, her mom is Missy, when Missy arrives at the house, she actually sees that Jessica's car is still in the driveway. And I know personally that if that was me, I'd be like, oh, thank God. Like, I think you just overslept, right? So she also knew that Jessica had been home that night by herself because her son was at his dad's house. So she knew that she had been there. So she walks up to the door, but it's locked. And so she has a spare key. She lets herself in. Again, all these things are the things I'd be doing. Probably not really panicking. You probably think that your daughter overslept or something. Now, once she gets in the house, she realizes it's still completely dark. Nobody has been up for the day. So she's like, but she could hear running water. And so she was like, okay, let me go check out what's going on. So she goes into the bathroom. She opens the door and it's here that she finds Jessica in the bathtub in the fetal position with running water. Now, Missy immediately calls 911 and tells them, quote, "It looks like she slipped in the shower. I don't know how long she's been there." Now, Jessica's body was partially submerged in the tub. She was naked and she was holding a cell phone charging cord in her hand. Now, her mother drains the tub to see what she could do to help her daughter. And it's then that she realizes that her daughter is dead, that it's far too late and that she's not alive. Now, police show up and they start looking around and they notice, first of all, there's no forced entry into the home because Missy tells them like, no, the door was locked when I got here. Like I used my key to get in. They also notice that like she looks like she fell in the tub. There are some of her clothes are also in the tub with her. And the fact that she's holding a cell phone cord, honestly, it literally looked like she like either stepped out or was stepping into the tub, slipped, fell, and here she is, right? Now, they also though find that there's some blood on the couch in the living room. And they're kind of like, that's a little different. And so they look her body over and the only thing they see is a little tiny bruise on her neck. So everything they see, they're like, it literally looks like this girl accidentally fell to her death, which is a possibility, 100%. Now, bravo to the fucking police, these Nebraska police officers, because they did not do what other places do and say, oh, she slipped and fell. They said, listen, it looks like she slipped and fell. However, let's just collect some evidence just in case. Okay. So they collected evidence from her home as if it was a homicide, but did not actually initially think it was a homicide. So they collect all these things and they realize not too long after, no, she was killed. So thankfully they decided to treat it as a homicide without knowing it was a homicide, which I think they should do every time. When you think somebody like committed suicide, or if you think somebody was an accidental death, collect the shit anyways. Run it for DNA just in case. That's what they did. So they actually collected her cell phone cord. They collected items from her bathtub, from her bedroom. They also had found the blood that was on her couch. They found blood outside of her bathroom and in the living room. So they swabbed all those. They also saw that her right nail looked like it had kind of been bent backwards. So they obviously swabbed that. They also collected swabs from under all of her fingernails and they took fingernail clippings from her. The autopsy ends up actually confirming that Jessica had been strangled. They determined that she had been strangled with the cell phone cord that she was holding in her hand. Now, since there was no forced entry, the police automatically start to believe that she must have known the person who killed her. Now, the obvious first choice is her ex, John, clearly. So they go and talk to him and he tells the police that, no, I did see her on the 24th, but that was just when she was dropping off their son. He denied having any problems between them. However, there were people who claimed that apparently they argued a lot about money and custody stuff, and he denied all of that. I don't know if it's true or not, but that would have been his motive, right? So they were asking, he's like, no, we were getting along. Everything was fine. So they end up using cell phone records to look at where he was during the time that they estimated that she had died. And his cell phone records matched the fact that he was still sitting in his home or wherever he said he was going to be. They were able to clear him as a suspect. Now, another person that came up as a person of interest for them was Matthew Kidder. Now, her family was like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, Matthew's like family, like, he's not blood related, but he's damn near feels like blood related. We are like cousins by friendship. He would never do this. But the police were like, but the evidence kind of tells us something a little bit different than what you guys think of Matthew. So they talked to Matthew, and Matthew's like, I had nothing to do with her murder. She was like a sister to me. We were brother and sister relationship. He did tell them, though, that sometimes we would kind of engage in like sexual innuendos via text message, like as jokes. But I was not actually interested in her. And she also was not interested in me. Like, that was just our relationship, which I know sounds weird, but I'm going to tell you right now, in my family, I most definitely know some people who are like that. So I get it. He actually quoted, we would just playfully tease each other. That's what he says. Now, he then tells the police, however, whoever killed her would probably have waited to make sure that she was home alone and that they probably saw her Facebook post that night. Which bitch? This Facebook post that he's talking about actually was posted on June 24th, 2015 at 9:49 p.m. And it said, and this is what Jessyka posted. I lost my remote to Blu-ray player for like 15 minutes and thought my life was over. Seriously, I am such a mess when, and I'm not going to say her son's name, but when her son is gone. So that's what she posted. So that's what he's referring to as, well, whoever killed her probably saw her Facebook post that said that she was home alone that night. That's an interesting observation, sir.
Okay.
Now, police begin to start to like piece shit together, and they're kind of like, well, that is weird that would be something you would point out, that the killer would notice. They also looked at his work, and they realized that not only did he work on the 24th, but he also worked like really close to Jessica's home. So that was weird. They also knew that he had checked Facebook that night. They obviously knew he had seen her post. Now, they also, through all this, they were like, let's take a look at your, do we have permission to look at your phone and text messages? He's like, yeah, sure. So they start looking through his text messages, and they find that he has like several text messages to Jessyka. And this thread of text messages they looked particularly at had actually started in February of 2014. So like the year before. And it started with him agreeing to help her shovel her driveway. So he, for whatever reason, had said like, she had asked like, can you come help me? And he's like, absolutely, yeah, I'll come over. But they started to notice that in this whole thread of text messages, most of them were from Matthew. Like, he was the one texting all the time. And a lot of the times he was asking Jessyka, like, hey, do you want to meet up? Do you want to go do something? And most of those text messages went unanswered, or she said no. Never once did she say, yeah, let's go hang out. Now, in April of 2015, Matthew sends a text message asking Jessyka if he can come to her house. Now, what he tells her is that he had an early morning errand and he needed a place to hang out until then. My guess is that I know that he worked a late shift. So my guess is he was saying, hey, when I get off work, can I come to your house and just chill? Because I got to get up super early. I have some shit to do. Can I just basically hang at your house? To which she actually tells him, like, yeah, sure. She says, yes, you can come over. Yeah, I'll leave the door unlocked though, because I will be in bed and I will be sleeping. And she said, you can either take a nap on the couch, watch TV, or you can hang out on the chairs outside until you have to go. So that's what she tells him. Now, later that same day, he actually texts her and says, I'll admit a little part of me wanted to run in and doggy pile you, but I didn't feel like being stabbed or beat up, LOL. To which Jessyka replies, LOL, yeah, that def would have happened. I'm a grouch when my sleep is interrupted unless you're her son, then I'm less grouchy, LOL. To which he responds, LOL, maybe next time. And she responds back and says, if you want to die, I do keep a good sized knife in my nightstand drawer. Matthew responds with, challenge accepted. We will need to lay some ground rules though. No hair pulling, no biting, LOL. And her response to that was, or you could just leave me alone while I'm sleeping and save us all a hassle. Based off those messages, he's trying to flirtatiously be around her. You can clearly tell she's not having it. Like, I can see that in those messages personally. I don't know about you, but that's now Matthew continues to text her after this, and some of the text messages get sexual, and all of these messages, every single one that he messaged her, she completely ignores. She never responds. Now in June of 2015, Matthew actually texts her again and says, scale of feeling playful, stabby to murdered in my sleep.
The fuck?
That's just what he says. Then he texts again and says, yeah, trying to make a joke and now she's mad at me. LOL. Then he texts again. I figured it would be a funny breaking the ice joke since every other guy wants to send dick pics for their first or all communication, and I'm the one who asks off the wall questions. Jessyka does not respond to any of these. So basically what it sounds like is after their text messages in April, when he was telling her oh, we should set some ground rules and stabby and blah, blah, blah. It's almost like she didn't want to talk to him after that for whatever reason. And he was upset. It sounded like that she didn't want to text him. And so he would text her messages. And when she didn't respond, he would say things like, oh yeah, okay, it's my fault. Yeah, I'm the weirdo. I'm the one, blah. So he was just being like a dick. And she didn't want to talk to him. You could just see. I get the vibe that they were all friends, but I kind of get the thought as I was reading this that I don't think they were super close friends. I think growing up, they were all close and he was best friends with her brother. But I think it kind of sounded like maybe she felt he overstepped his bounds a little bit. And maybe he would, because he would constantly ask to go to her house and stuff. And so I think she was
very pushy and flirty.
Yeah. And
what his version of flirty is. And she was like,
she wasn't having it.
I'm not interested.
I'm not interested. Right. I think she was just kind of like, dude, I don't want anything to do with you. Now, June 24th of 2015, Matthew does send, now again, that is the day that she is murdered, is this day. So Matthew does send a text message that says, who's down to hang out or catch a movie Saturday night? By the way, it said in the article that I was reading that he sent that to her. He didn't send it out to everybody. He was just like, who wants to hang or catch a movie Saturday night? But it was specifically to her. It wasn't a mass text, right? She again does not respond. It's Cole, get out of my life. Now, while Matthew is talking to the police, they also notice that he has a cut on his hand. And he says, oh, I got this at work. And they're like, okay, well, tell us about your job. And he's like, oh, I work from 3 p.m. to 11:40 p.m. And then they're like, well, can you give us a sample of your DNA, please? And he's like, yes, of course. He lets them search his cell phone. He cooperates literally with them pretty much on anything that they need. Now, after all this is going on, they literally look at him like, okay, well, right now we have nothing to keep you here. So we're going to let you go. No charges. Basically I'm picturing in the TV shows, don't leave town.
Right.
But, right now you're okay. A few weeks after they question him, or a few weeks later, after they did their initial questioning, they bring him back in for more questions. And they actually asked him about Jessyka in particular, maybe what their relationship was or how he felt about her. And he responds, and this is a quote, so it's not how I would say it, but whatever. This is quoted from him. I kind of classify women in 3 stages. Ones I could be friends with, I just want to see naked, and ones I want to sleep with. Jessyka was kind of in between. I want to see her naked and no feelings. Just because she had a nice rack. She had nice boobs. So that's what he tells the cops. By the way, this girl, it died. How is that how you're talking about your friend who died? Now, they again ask him where he was the night she was murdered. And he tells them, well, I was at work and I never went to her house after work. I was at work that night. I got off work. I went home. And he said, but I will tell you, to be honest with you, I was at her house on the 23rd. Okay, I did go to her house on the 23rd.
How convenient.
Oh, just think of how convenient this is. I was there helping her move furniture. Okay, that's what I was there. And because I was helping her move furniture, I profusely sweated heavily on her couch and her mattress. And also, you might find my blood in her house because I'm always bleeding. Because I either pick scabs or I'm always cutting myself on something.
Okay.
Bro. I'm like, bro, okay. All right now. Now, I want to make something very clear. He went to her funeral. Okay. So because he was not arrested initially, right? So he went to her funeral. He did all the things that you would expect, which is why her family was like, there's no way that he has anything to do with this. So the fact that he was able to completely disconnect the fact that he fucking raped and murdered this girl in her home and then pretend like he had nothing to do with it. So much so that he genuinely was like, yeah, let me go to her funeral. Like he stayed in their lives like that, right? So police are eventually able to match the DNA that they had collected from the scene to Matthew's DNA. Now, the phone charging cord that was found in her hand had 2 DNA samples on it. One was Jessica's and the other was Matthew's. So nobody else touched that fucking cord. Now, also the DNA under her nails, the one that was bent back, that DNA, there was DNA under that nail and one of her other nails, and those 2 DNAs matched each other. So meaning that, like both hands scratching somebody, and that DNA matched Matthew's. So obviously they're like, fork done, right? So they go and they arrest Matthew, and he is charged with first-degree murder, and he, of course, pleads not guilty. Now, during his trial, the prosecution brings forward the DNA evidence. They also bring evidence of his cell phone data, and what it showed is that his cell phone had pinged off of a tower that was near her home at 11:56 a.m. and again at 12:02 a.m. And then 30 minutes later, it pings near his own home. So it shows that he was at her house. He most definitely was at her house. They also present a phone call from him to his father. I don't know how many times I need to say this. If you are ever in jail and you are on a jailhouse phone call, I mean, I guess thankful that people are stupid. Don't fucking say shit. Those shits are recorded.
Yeah, no shit.
Don't say shit, right? So they have a phone call between him and his dad. And he says, yeah, I think she fell asleep on the couch after I left and somebody came in behind me. So he's telling his dad that he thinks this is what happened to her, which his dad says, after you left, you were never there, because that's what he's telling everybody. And then his response is, Dad, my phone puts me there. So like he knows he's there. And right there, he admits that he was at her house when he just sat there and told the police he never went there. Now, there was also a witness who had shared a cell with Matthew for like a very short time. And he supposedly said that when he was in that cell, Matthew told him everything that happened, literally everything that happened. And he said that they had so they had him testify, basically saying like, no, he like in detail told me exactly what happened. He said that it actually started with, supposedly what he said is that he had gone to her house. He knocked on her back door. She let him in. Somehow, some way, which he didn't go into detail, he somehow happened to headbutt her, which then caused a problem.
Somehow? Mm-hmm. How do you accidentally headbutt somebody? What the fuck?
Yep. Then caused a problem to where he ends up strangling her, raping her and strangling her. Like, oops. My bad. Like,
my bad.
okay.
I headbutted you. I'm going to rape and strangle you.
Yeah, sorry. My bad. So that's what this guy says. And then they also found searches on his laptop. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on what the searches are, but what I will tell you is the searches had to do with strangulation, forced sexual acts, and pornography that also was in those realms. Also, a couple of different movies that were kind of in those realms. And then they found three laptops or three more videos. Like they found a bunch of video evidence, not saying that if you're into that kind of pornography that you are going to be somebody who goes out and rapes somebody. However, that's a strong indicator. If that's what you're watching, or, if you're watching how to strangle somebody, if you're watching that kind of stuff, that could be a red flag. That's a big red flag, actually. And so when they see that, they're like, okay, hold on. So they bring that up too. Now, the jury ends up taking 41 minutes to deliberate, and they come back with a guilty verdict. Now, he is sentenced to life in prison for the murder charge and 50 years for the use of a deadly weapon to commit a felony. However, his lawyer was like, actually, you can't do the 50-year sentence because this one law had been passed, and now that is too heavy of a sentence, and he's only allowed to be in jail for 20. And I'm sitting here going, who gives a fuck? He's got a life sentence as well. I was
just going to say, why are we a life sentence? Yeah. It doesn't really matter.
What the hell are we doing? So they drop it down to 20. Now, Matthew ends up appealing his sentence because, and by the way, while he was in court, they were taught I think it was Jessica's dad was talking about him, like about Matthew, and saying like he's a danger to society, like he's a danger person. And he was like, what the fuck ever. And again, this guy, it's like he doesn't I mean, he's never admitted to this day. He doesn't admit that he did it, right? So it's like for him, he's just like, it's just me. Let me reiterate, as he sits here and pretends like he didn't really do anything, he served 5 years in prison for breaking into a woman's home and sexually assaulting her. So let's not pretend like he didn't do this, because he has already served time for sexual assault. And he literally, the woman, thank goodness, the woman was the one who, I mean, she was able to come forward and she obviously didn't die, but he strangled her too. He just didn't kill her. So again, not a fucking innocent person. So Matthew ends up appealing his sentence, but the Nebraska Supreme Court was like, no, like, you're stuck with what we gave you because it completely fits the crime. And what he was trying to say actually is they were trying to get a piece of his, I think it was his cell phone records or something, or no, it was his, like the pornography and stuff. They were trying to get that. And they were saying like, hey, they should have never used that because of whatever reason. And the actual Supreme Court was like, okay, so let's say we did take that out. Your DNA evidence was still all over.
Yeah,
everything.
I would say you don't need that.
That you didn't need that evidence to be convicted. So they said, no. You, not only, sir, absolutely are you going to be guilty and have life in prison. But guess what we just found out? We just found out that they argued that you got a 20-year sentence instead of 50. But you know what we found out is that in the state of Nebraska, we actually allow the 50-year sentence. So you also now get the extra 50 years.
Damn.
So he appealed and actually came out with a heavier
bitch.
Yeah. Which also was like, fuck yeah. Like that's the best ending I could ask for, because he went in wanting a reduced sentence and they're like, absolutely not. Not only are you not getting it dropped, but now we're adding more. Here's an extra 30 years, bub. So anyways, that is the story of Matthew Kidder, the man who is just a flaming pile of shit. I genuinely don't know how else to say it. I think the part of this that struck me the most and like made me go, oh my God, is the fact that this is somebody, like, he killed his own friend, like his own family friend, and then didn't even feel bad about it. Like, didn't even feel bad about it. And had her whole entire family was like, no way did he do this. There's no way that he would do something like this. He's our friend. So it's like in my head, I just sit there and I'm like, oh my God, like this is one of those stories. We just talked about trust issues the other day, Sierra.
Right.
This is one of those stories that's like, this is what I'm talking about. It is so hard to believe in anything anymore because you just don't fucking know.
Yep.
And I think the part for me that I struggle with this one is because there's no background information. But again, the fact that the families were friends and stuff, like, to me, it doesn't really, I mean, I'm not saying that he had a fucked up childhood, and I'm not saying he didn't. I don't know. But he obviously had some issues. And it's like, I wish there was more information about, like, did he do any other stuff when he was a child? Was there some other precursors that we could think about? However, that information was not available. That's it. That's our story of Matthew Kidder. So, kind of shitty. Can't trust anybody in the world. But again, sweet justice in the end, because he's in prison for the rest of his life.
And has an extra 50.
And has an extra, well, it was added 30 because he was 20. And he gets an extra
50.
Yeah, so he's in jail. I think the way they do it too is he has to serve the 50 and then serve the life, right? Like, if you have that kind of sentence,
sense.
that's so, like, if you had a
complete
sentence where
the smaller
like,
one first, and then
that's how I think they do it. So he has to serve 50. And then he has to serve life on top of it. Or they could do them together, meaning that his 50 years goes towards his life sentence. But again, you have to ask for parole. And I just don't see this guy ever getting out on parole, because one of the things of parole is you have to accept responsibility for your crime.
And he still hasn't.
And he won't accept it because he just like won't say whether or not he did it or not. And he's very like kind of cocky about it. Like, whatever. Like, like, I don't even know. I just don't. He's got that cocky ass face too. So cocky ass face, that's what he is. Anyways, if you like this shit, if you like what you're hearing us talk about, and if you sat through the episode, we thank you very much. I do want to take a minute to really genuinely say thank you to all of our listeners, because this podcast, along with our other podcast, Fatal Blend, I've seen a major uptick in our downloads, and I genuinely appreciate that. And I know Sierra appreciates it, because the more that we do this and the more you guys are willing to listen, the better chance you have that we're going to continue to do it. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for following. If you're not following, please click the follow on whatever platform you're hearing us on. Share us with your friends and family that you think will like our vibe. Don't send it to your friends like children or teenagers or whatever. Yeah, don't send it to your adult grandparents unless they're like us. I mean, if they're like us, that's sure. But if they're not like us, keep it to yourself. So I think that's about all I got right now. So until next time, catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye, bitches.